Welcome back, everyone. It's Ready or Not
Money Talks. I'm Nate the Great.
I'm Chris Stacks, and we are here to bring you some more financial, business, and fun, specifically for millennials.
Absolutely.
So, Nate, what did we go over in the last two episodes so we can give everybody a quick recap? And obviously, if you want to really see everything we talked about, go watch the two episodes. They're on our channel. But just a quick recap. What were the first two?
We went over budgeting and the 50-30-20 rule.
Perfect. So if you guys don't have a budget in place, and if you've never heard of the 50-30-20 rule, you should definitely go back and look at those first before going through this whole video, although I appreciate you tuning in. But Nate, so if I've got a budget in place, which we've talked about how many times is how important.
I can't even
And then the 50-30-20 rule, that's more so, I figured out how to use the microwave, but now I'm understanding how to, put different things together, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what does that lead into with what we're going to talk about today? You look at what's going on right now. Where's the average person at as far as, obviously, we don't have enough people utilizing budgets?
Well, I mean, once you have your budget in place and you have the 50-30-20, then that's when you may realize that you need more income in order to implement your plans. So that's where we come into this episode, which is side hustles.
So when you're looking at a side hustle, there's a lot of people that are looking at, well, Nate, I work a 9 to 5 already. I went to school. I'm working with the degree I have, or unfortunately, a lot of people that I run into, servers, bartenders,
have degrees they're not even using.
So many different people. Yeah, they've got degrees, but they're not using their masters as a bartender.
Nope.
So why would people go into that field if they went and got a master's? Why would people go into that field if they've got a bachelor's degree already?
I mean, a lot of them is going in for the easy money, quick money. And then not all of them realize that it's not sustainable for your entire life, depending on what you're doing, what your plans are for the future.
Very true. So if I'm looking at budgeting, or if I'm looking at the side hustle, I should say, and I've already got my 9 to 5, could I go out and get a bartending job, or could I go out and get a serving job, or even could I look at a new career?
Absolutely.
Okay. So let me ask you, with everything going on financially in the country, where would you say most people are? We've been talking a lot about what's going on right now.
Right.
And also, you're the numbers guy. We've been going over specifically what's happening in our economy. So where are most people at today?
Well, I mean, average debt in the U.S. right now is $96K.
Whoo!
So yeah. So especially with everything that's gone on the last couple of years, that number has climbed.
Very true.
Then you have credit card debt. That's about 5K, 40 to 59 highest numbers.
Well, yeah, so if you're 40 to 59 years old, that's going to be the ones that have the most.
Exactly.
So you mean, as I'm heading into retirement,
Yeah.
most of the time that I have the highest amount of credit card debt, so that means, like myself, I'm a millennial, and my parents are Gen X. My dad's 57,
Oh, they're just in
and
there.
my mom's 54, 55.
Okay.
So they're in that range. So that means for me, if my parents are, are right there in the norm, then I have to start thinking about, okay, A, are my parents going to be able to retire? B, if they're in credit card debt, that probably means they don't have enough savings.
Right.
So if they want to retire, who are they going to lean on?
You.
Ooh, so that's what most people
And
are
you're an
dealing
only
with
child.
right now. And I am an only child. You're actually 100% correct. All my friends that came over all the time for free food, maybe we should talk.
But then you got the percent of the U.S. with debt, 77%. So only 23% of people in the U.S. right now are debt-free.
Wow.
And then obviously, we can go into what's good debt, bad debt, but that'll be a future episode.
Yeah.
Then we have median household income. Right now it's 62K, which we've looked at this before. How much has that gone up in the last 50 years?
So if you look at 1990, and I know not everybody on here, especially we're talking to millennials and Gen Zers, if you're not all you're going to remember, but back in the 1990s,
I was a kid.
So I was 5 years old. The average household income was $52,000.
Yeah, so it's gone up 10K in 30 years,
Which is
in our lifetime, basically.
Which is 20%, pretty much, in our lifetime.
Yeah.
But if you think about that, gas in the last 2 years, 2.5 years, we'll say alone, has gone up over 100%.
Right.
You look at food is up over 300% for most types of food right now.
Mm-hmm.
You look at housing in the last 2 years,
I wanted to say it's 4 or 8.
400.
400. Okay, I was like
Yeah.
400,000. 400%.
400%. So what the heck is going on with our income in 30 years
Yeah.
being only 20%? That's why the 9 to 5, they always joke about it being a trap, the rat race.
Yep. It's not going to get you where you want to go. It's going to keep you trapped forever.
So if I've got debt, if the majority of people are in debt, and we're looking at income not being high enough, what would you say most people are dealing with as far as, do they have savings?
I mean, some people do, a lot of people don't. Median savings household is going to be around 3,200.
So the average person has $3,200 in savings. I mean, back in when I was younger, I would have looked at 3,200 as a lot of money. So you're saying the average person who walks Joe Smo on the street has 3,200 in savings?
I mean, I couldn't tell you if you're like there's obviously there's median and average. Median is saying that there's 3,200. So there's a good chance the people you're walking by don't have that. Because you have the people that have a lot more that are skewing the numbers.
So, like our mentor, PBD, who talked about the other day.
Oh, yeah.
I've got 200 million liquid right now, so I can buy buildings, businesses, other things.
Especially with everything going on the next 12, 18, 24 months, everything could be going on sale.
And I mean, even I talk about this with our agents, I even talk openly about this with our clientele, is I right now have $30,000 liquid cash. Why? Because I'm waiting for an not waiting. As the economic downturn progresses,
he's not hoping for it, but he knows we're preparing for it.
We're being economically smart and just watching the tea leaves. But, back even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, to think about having $32,000 just savings, not investments, etc., that was a lot of money to me. But if the average person has 3,200, that wouldn't be as bad. But you're saying, well, even with the median, that's probably not the right number.
Correct.
So what would the right number be?
$1,000.
And have you read that from anywhere, or is that you're kind of estimating?
Yes, Bankrate actually is showing that the average household can't even afford a $1,000 bill if it were to hit them tomorrow.
That's huge, because what costs $1,000 today?
I mean, tires, your car breaks down, you need your fridge, an appliance, major appliance in the house. It's going to be major for that.
So you're thinking about that. That's huge. So how do we build up that $1,000? Well, a lot of people say, well, tone down your lifestyle. Well, today with everything getting more expensive, is it really that easy?
No, it's not.
And we just had the announcement from the Fed that the CPI is now 8.2%. They were expecting this massive drop.
Well, 8.2, that still seems kind of low. Are they still including everything in that?
So funny enough, 8.2 is the highest that it's been, besides the last couple months, the highest it's been since 1970. But 8.2%, funny enough, it's interesting how the government's calculating this right now, because they decided to keep gas out of it. Because gas price rolled, as far as the cost or the inflation numbers, they roll in late.
Okay.
So with this CPI, that is not including the cost of gas. How many of you are paying more gas in the last 30 days?
I don't know who isn't
45
paying
days. Exactly. But the other part of that is if you rent, instead of going to somebody who actually rents, I rent, Nate rents, and saying, hey, are you paying more money this year than you paid last year?
Absolutely.
They went to individuals who own homes and said, hey, if you were to rent your house, how much would you rent your house for? They didn't go to people that own multiple rental properties and find out exactly what they're charging compared to what they charged last year. They went to random individuals and asked them. So
interesting.
If I'm a 60-year-old individual that owns my house and you ask me, what would you rent this for? And I've got a $400 mortgage at this point, $500 mortgage.
Yeah, I'll just probably put it enough to pay for my mortgage.
$1,600. But if
it's not going to be an accurate
if
assessment.
If the market number is $2,000, $2,500, that's skewing it by $900.
Yeah, that's about 45% around there.
So this number, honestly, a lot of experts, I'm not even saying myself as an expert in this instance, but a lot of experts are out there weighing in that current CPI is probably closer to at least 10%, which is a massive number.
Well, that's almost a 25% increase from the current CPI.
Very true. And that's why when you're going to the gas station, when you're going to food, when you're going to like grocery stores, restaurants, you're getting smaller plates for more money. You're getting less groceries for more money. That's why you're feeling it so bad in certain areas. Now, well, let me ask you, if I'm looking at a side hustle, Nate, which is the main thing we're talking about, we wanted to give everybody a background of why we're talking about this.
Right.
Why would I look at a side hustle?
Well, I mean, you got to remember when you have like I mentioned before, you have your budget, you have your plan for going forward. And if you want to make sure you're retiring with enough money so you don't have to go back to work, you need to put in the extra work now and try to start to build your nest egg.
Very true, very true. So, but Nate, let me ask you, because we're talking to a lot of millennials, we're talking to a lot of Gen Z. And, they've talked about this numerous times with different psychological studies and such, that if I'm 30 years old, if I'm 28 years old, even 35, a lot of 35-year-olds aren't focused on retirement yet because they haven't had to flex that muscle, and it's not something that they're seeing as soon. Although you could be retiring sooner if you're doing it right, but if they're not focused on that, well, why do I want a 9 to 5 now then if I'm not just focused on retirement? Is there anything else? Just talking about the fact that we don't have proper emergency funds, right?
Right.
So,
Well, I mean, I mentioned before you want to have 3, 6, 9 months worth of savings. I mentioned that last episode. But you also, if you're still working on clearing your debt, you still want to have at least $1,000. If you have that emergency come up, you can pay for it on the spot.
So by getting a side hustle, instead of just focusing on retirement right now,
you can just use the side hustle to fund the emergency fund in case we have another economic situation like we did 2 years ago with the pandemic, or 10 years or 13 years ago with the housing crisis.
Very true, very true. And they're talking about what could be coming right now, so that'll be a whole other conversation.
That's a whole other video on it in itself.
Absolutely. So let me ask you though, as far as if I went to get a 9 to 5, if I'm looking for, a lot of people talk about work-life balance, all these different things, and I say, and I'm very direct, especially we're talking to a lot of millennials, Gen Z's here, I got to help you guys get a little bit thicker skin. So when we talk about work-life balance, at our company, we actually talk about work-life integration. So I love the fact that I get to work around my friends, but on top of that, I'm able to be flexible where I went to the gym today in the middle of the day with my wife, had a great workout. Now I'm in the office with you shooting a video at the end of the day.
Yep.
So to me, that's just as good, if not better, than the idea of just balance, because if my checkbook doesn't balance out, if my bills are too high, how balanced is my life really?
Oh yeah, no, you're stressing all the time.
All the time. So why are people looking at getting side hustles if they're also looking for work-life balance? Because is there something they're trying to achieve with that?
Well, they're trying to achieve the comfort of not having to worry about money later or now.
So they want control.
They want control.
But if at 9 to 5, if I'm on a fixed income, and I know that unless somebody retires or quits or gets fired, I can't move up, it's hard for me to have control there, right?
And at the same time, who's to say that you will be there the next day?
True.
For other people that thought they had to secure jobs, what happened with the pandemic?
Very true. So you can be looking at a side hustle, for flexibility and control at the same time, as long as you structure it properly and find the right place to partner with. Right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, well, if I'm going to make a career change, Nate, what if like I said, I've got a background in this, I've got a bachelor's degree, I've got, I've got these years experience. How do I make that transition? Because a lot of people aren't thinking about necessarily part-time off the bat, but how can that benefit them if they go part-time first?
If you go part-time first, you can learn the industry or the job you're going into, and you can build the skills over time.
So it's just like somebody that goes into, for instance, bartending. They go into bartending, and usually it's a temporary thing, which we know a lot of people that are temporary 12 years later.
Yep.
And temporary, but they haven't bartended a lot. They don't know every drink, but they know some, and they build those skills. Absolutely. It's the same thing in our industry. So, I didn't get started in the business full time. I got started in this industry a little over 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, with no experience, no license. I was helped get the license. I was mentored on how money works, on how to, because I was told if I don't know how money works, how am I expecting to grow my money?
Absolutely.
And so you'd make that transition to be able to build skills, earn that side income you were talking about, which then allows you to have the emergency fund, which then what? You stress less.
Absolutely.
There's less fights at home with the spouse, because we know that the spouse always likes to have more money.
I don't know that.
Well, he doesn't know that. But believe me, if you're married, you know what I'm talking about. But with that, you're able to transition later, right? You build those skills slowly. You think about when you played sports. You think about if you played video games. You think if you were a bartender. When I started, I knew the basic cocktails. Rum and Coke, Cape Codder, which is vodka cranberry, Long Island, and margarita. And a straight up martini.
Yeah.
I knew the basic martinis. But now at the end of my career, you probably could have asked me in the neighborhood of over 100 cocktails. And I knew the nickname, I knew what they made them, and I knew how you did the modifications to it. But that wasn't something that I learned overnight, just like playing baseball. I learned how to throw a baseball.
Which you wouldn't be expected to either, but a lot of people, they come into these things thinking they need to know everything right away, and you don't.
Right on.
Learn the basics and learn over time.
He's right on with that. And so if I'm going to expand from there, I'm looking at a new career. I'm looking at expanding my knowledge, my experience, my understanding. But if I'm going to go from there to utilizing my free time better, they talked about during the pandemic, hey, we're stuck at home. You're doing nothing. This is the best time to go build a new skill. But how many people use that time to catch up on every episode of everything possible on Netflix, Hulu?
It's funny because you had a lot of people doing one thing, a lot of people doing the other. So a lot of people, I mean, what was that show that came out? Tiger King. I never watched it. Yeah, I won't. But a lot of people love that.
Yep,
and then there were a bunch of shows that came out. Now, there were a lot of people that took the time to go outside, exercise, went for walks. Then there's people that did the opposite. They stayed home and ate more.
Yeah,
So
I will say, but my wife and I did more rollerblading, more outside workouts, like you name it, than we've done in years, which was kind of great.
Yeah.
I want to get back to it.
Yeah, it was nice. And then, but you also have people that they read books, they watched documentaries, watched stuff that enriched the mind, did seminars online, personal development. Obviously, we weren't going to these places in person at the time, but there's many ways.
So if I'm looking at expanding my knowledge, you said books, you said seminars. Those are great ways for me to go out and be able to expand my knowledge to what I want to do, or a way for me to make more money, whether it's building my own business,
Absolutely,
whether it's starting with somebody else and expanding on my skill set into a new realm. And if you look at a lot of people, how do I figure out where I want to go? Because what if I don't know my passion? You hear that all the time, right? Oh, well, my passion is in this. Do you think most people make the majority of their money? If you look at the Elon Musk, you look at the Mark Cubans, you look at the Bezos, you look at all these people, do you think that their first business, the one that paid them the most, and usually it's not their first, let's be real.
Yeah.
Most people fail 5, 10, 15 times before they ever make their first million. But they were willing to fail. You
have to be willing to fail over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And then, but not only that, about the passion, like, let's say you're not passionate about the first thing you do, but it makes you the money. It allows you the freedom once you build your money, savings, income to do the stuff you are passionate about. But at the same time, you don't know, not many people even know what they're passionate about. They go through everything over and over again, and they never find anything because they never stuck with anything long enough to be passionate about it.
I agree with that 100%. I tell people all the time, you know how you're going to find out you're passionate about something? I found out I was passionate about basketball because I was good at it. I was just good enough to where I wanted to get better.
Mm-hmm.
Baseball, I was just good enough where I wanted to get better. But when I first saw my friends playing soccer, I was like, Dad, I want to play soccer.
Yeah.
And then I went and played soccer. I was like, this sport's not for me. And then my dad was like, well, I played baseball. Why don't you try baseball? So I went and tried baseball. I was like, oh, this sport's fun. I like this sport. So I kept going with it. And if you think about so many things that we do, before it was put in front of us, we never knew that we wanted more of it. We never knew that we were going to enjoy it. And people will say, oh, I'm passionate about real estate. What about real estate? Helping people. There's 2 million realtors. There's plenty of people that help them in real estate. If you're passionate about real estate, go buy real estate. Go build real estate.
Mm-hmm.
If you're passionate about it, it's not about, I want to sell you it. Let's be real. Mark Cuban doesn't own the Dallas Mavericks, or he didn't buy the worst team in the NBA for what they call an overpriced amount,
right?
Because they were making him money.
Yeah,
he bought it because he was passionate about Dallas, and then he
made that money before.
Right.
He had to make the money with maybe something he was less passionate about.
The internet business, yeah.
The internet business, but I don't know how passionate he was about that going forward. He probably loves it now, thinking back, but he bought the Mavericks because that's what he loved.
Yep. So we have to have more people that are focused on, okay, like you said, books, seminars, personal development. That's a key right now that I don't think enough people are focused on. Our firm does a book of the month club. We also do seminars at least twice a year. We actually have a third seminar usually. And now we're doing mastermind alliances and flying individuals in to be able to train our team to get them extra exposure to different mindsets, to different language, to different thinking. Because when you're surrounded by new people, it's gonna give you that creative spark.
Yeah, because you never know who's going to be the one that says the thing that reaches you.
Yep, very true. It's similar to what they talk about with religion, church, and those types of things. Who's the person that's going to key you up? Who's the person that's going to give you that little spark? And then if you take that to one step further, when you got started with the firm 2 years ago now, just about?
Yeah, a little over 2 years now.
Just over 2 years. It was almost my birthday. So just over 2 years ago, you were more of an introvert. You were quieter, and you definitely didn't seem like you read as much as you do now.
I mean, growing up I read, but it was young adult
Harry Potter,
Harry Potter, exactly. It was never self-development books, business books. And since joining the agency 2 years ago, 50, 60 books maybe, but more
That's not-
self-development, stuff like that, stuff that's helped me, one, gain the confidence to be doing this with you right now. I would not have done this over 2 years ago. There's no way.
Yeah. And we always talk about, we want you to understand that we're not just giving you tips on go do this, but we don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't grow up learning about money and knowing about money, so I wasn't saving a lot. I saved enough to pay, you know, the first week of the month, I made sure I had my bills for the next month.
Right.
And then I spent the majority of what else I made. Now, and honestly, thanks to my wife, that is not how I am.
Mm-hmm.
We have a good amount of savings, we have investments, we have our life insurance policies, we have different things that we have going on. But that's with growing and evolution. Now you look at you, especially with the business, and I mean, last year I read 48 books. I did okay. I did 4 a month. I was a little behind my pace, but I did 4 a month.
Yeah, I think last year I did 3 or 4 a month. So my number might actually be over.
Might even be higher. But if you think about that, by going into a business that was forcing you to grow, forcing you to level up, and when I say forcing, it wasn't like gunpoint. It was giving you the opportunity to make the decision.
Absolutely.
And that's one thing I think a lot of people don't realize is it doesn't matter who you go start with. You can go start with 10X. You can go start with Gary Vee. You can work for all these different people. But if you're not putting in the time outside, are you ever going to get to that level you want to get to?
Nope.
And, you know, a lot of people, they're like, oh, a side hustle, that's more time. Let's be real. If the majority of your time is spent at home stressing about money, or if you go out and then you stare at your credit card statement going, how am I going to pay this?
But at the same time, what are you doing with your time anyway?
Maybe we should do an entire episode, which I think we could do an entire episode on the amount of time you have in a week and how that can correlate to your cash flow or take away from.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Because I think a lot of people have more time, just like Nate just said, than they realize. And then if you take everything that we just said, you know, Nate's confidence going up just by reading books, attending seminars, being around the right people. You know, they say
yes, 100%.
They say you were the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Well, if I'm working the same job for the last 10 years, 15 years, and we're talking to 30, 20 something to 30 something years, so 5 to 10 years.
Right.
Very reasonable, right? If I've been working the same job and I'm around the same people, because the job doesn't have a lot of hiring and firing, which is a good thing, but if I'm around the same people, then I'm always getting the same feedback. It's like a cycle. They call it the rat race for a reason, because you're in the same cycle. But the minute that I expand and I go to do something else, I go join a new networking group, I go to like a chamber of commerce.
Or even, let's say a new person joins up that has a different mindset.
Yeah.
And you go starting to see what they're about and outside of work.
Very, very true. I notice wherever I go, because I love networking, and a lot of people look at it networking as just another way to sell people. Well, I just did a training with our team the other day talking about the fact that when you're networking, the point of networking is seeing how you can help the other person.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to go sell them. If you don't have friends, if you don't have acquaintances, if you don't have people you can refer out, because what if somebody needs a plumber? What if somebody needs a roofer? Down here in Florida, solar, car, you name it.
I've had people reach out to me. Do you know someone that does this?
Exactly.
And I'm like, yeah, I do. I can send them your way.
And if you become a connector, but you're also working in a field on a part-time basis, we're in the financial industry, life insurance, retirement, tax-free strategies. If we're in that space and I refer somebody this, what's the likelihood of them then asking me again, hey, do you know somebody in the financial world? Hey, do you know somebody this? Even if they don't know what I do.
Mm-hmm.
It's the fact that they're coming to me for other things.
Absolutely.
So what I've realized is if you're around like-minded people that are constantly focused on getting better, constantly focused on helping others and providing solutions, versus if you realize that the majority of people you're around are constantly complaining to you, bitching to you, bringing, what do they call it? Bringing gossip to you.
Oh, yeah.
You have to ask yourself, why are you the person that they constantly come to?
Well, yeah, exactly. Because are you feeding into it or are you discouraging it?
Right. I've noticed that a lot of people, that I've met that tried to bring gossip to me, because I don't feed into it, I don't fuel it, as you'd say. Instead, I'm just like, yeah, okay, like why? And I'm question based now.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I've learned through reading, where I'm going to ask you questions. Why is this important? Why is this
relevant?
relevant?
Your life?
Yes.
Yep, absolutely.
Great book.
Great book.
So now when I'm talking to people, I'm not, tell me more. What happened with Jill and Johnny on Bachelorette? I don't care. I want to know what's going on in your actual life. I want to know how I can help you. I want to know, what you're looking to accomplish. And it's funny because most people that I now meet, I met a gentleman today, younger guy, Gen Z, and he's like, oh, I'm looking for a way to be able to get into the financial industry. I just laughed. I was like, hold on, that's the question you're asking me? He's like, yeah. I was like, oh, I work in the money game. But when you start thinking that way and your vibes are going that way, I've noticed that you're always attracting those types of people.
Oh, absolutely.
And so if you're around the right people and you're attending the right seminars, you're reading the right books, it allows you to provide more benefits for others, right?
Absolutely.
And if you're always helping others, what did I just say the other night?
The more you personally develop, the more you help others, the less you worry about money.
And so the whole point of this podcast, besides just getting people to think more, is we want you to worry about money less. Mm-hmm. We want you to have money come to you, work for you. We want you to feel like the luckiest person all the time, where every time you turn around, you're making more money or you're helping somebody else, not worry about money.
Right.
And if you do that, watch how much easier your life gets. And so, I don't want to make this long-winded. I think we've covered everything. Is there anything else you wanted to cover on this topic?
For this topic, no, I don't think so.
So, guys, we're going to be coming out with another episode this week. I will be in Orlando, but we're going to make sure we come out with it before I head to Orlando. We do have a meeting up there. But think about what your current situation is. If you don't have a budget, go back and watch our budgeting video. If you've got a budget, but you're not sure if you're kind of splitting it up,
delegating
the funds properly, then go watch our 50-30-20 video. And if you've done both of those and you're looking at yourself going,
I'm not making enough money.
I'm not making enough money, Chris. I can't do a 50-30-20. I can't just cover my bills, let alone save money. So how am I ever going to get ahead where I'm not worried about everything?
And you should look into getting a side hustle.
Then you should look at a side hustle. There's obviously plenty out there. And honestly, if you're not sure, but you're saying, I want to learn more about money at the same time, shoot us a DM. Maybe it's a fit for you to potentially look at working with our firm. We're happy to interview and see if it's a fit. But either way, we appreciate you guys being on. This is Ready or Not.
Money Talks.
And we'll be back later this week.